Hello and welcome to the second Dram 1 review. Today I'm reviewing a bourbon, the Four Roses Single Barrel. Welcome at the Four Roses Single Barrel review. Now, Four Roses is a brand that always excites me. They have a very unique philosophy of using 10 different recipes for their whiskey, for their regular label. They use 5 different yeast strains and 2 different mash bills, and they combine that all into creating their regular Four Roses label. But today we're reviewing the single barrel. And the single barrel is just one of those recipes, one of those barrels, and that means that if you pick up a bottle of this, it'll be different every time. And it leaves little nuances to discover, which is something I love about whiskey. I love discovering new flavors, I love discovering little nuances, and yeah, this whiskey allows you to explore. The next time I'll pick it up on the shelf, it will be different from what it is this time around. Four Roses is open about it. You don't have to worry about buying the same thing twice. You can just have a little look at the label. And there you'll see this has been aged in warehouse PS. And it comes from barrel number 20-1B. So much for information on the brand a little bit. Much more knowledge of course available, but this is a review after all. So let's dive into my tasting notes. That warm, thick, luscious sweetness is immediately there. There's caramel toffee, there is rye bread, there's butter, there's honey. It's thick, it's luscious, and it's all the things I love about a good bourbon. And a lot of people think the sweetness from a bourbon comes from the corn, but that's in fact not true. It all comes from the barrel. To name something a bourbon, it has to be, well, made in America of course, but aside from that, it needs to be aged in new charred oak. So it's never been used, and all that wood still has the sweet notes, the tannins, that give off that sweet flavor that we have become familiar with for bourbon. Where Scotch, for example, mostly uses refill oak, or even a first fill is something that has had another liquid in it already. So you get less influence from the wood, and those vanillins from the wood, that's what makes bourbon, well, the desserty treat that we know and love. So let's have a little sip and let's find out what we can find on the palate. This is very dense, heavy, and full of flavor. There's not much delicate about this, which is fine. I'm not looking for delicate in when I want a bourbon, a nice bourbon after dinner, for example. This has a lot of heft. It has a lot of bitter tannins, so it's not just sweetness. It's much less sweet than I'm used to from bourbon, in fact. But the brown sugar is still there, and so are the honeyed pecans. And oddly enough, I found it on the nose, I'm finding it on the palate. I keep finding some black tea note too, and some licorice as well. All in all, it's just heavy, dense, delicious, and I greatly appreciate that. And it's bottled at 50% ABV, so it brings some oomph with it as well. And well, let's hope the oomph is something we can appreciate. It's not a beginner level, let's say that. If you want to start off somebody light, start at something at 40%, because this will knock them back a bit. Anyway, the finish, as I'm talking, let's not forget that it lasts quite long, and it evolves a bit. one of the best things I'm finding on the finish is that there's dark chocolate with mint in it, and it's like I don't know if you know them, the After Eight chocolate, and that can go two ways with me, because I am very fond of After Eight, but I've also eaten them to the point I get nauseous. So when I'm finding that note, it can either remind me of I ate too much and then it started tasting like this, or it's just the first few After Eights when you still feel a hankering for more. Well, anyway, this is the first few because it's a delicious finish. It's still lingering as I'm talking, and the black tea is there as well. That one carries out throughout, and I greatly appreciate that. Now, before I move on, let's add some water. Let's see what that does, because I like activating the whiskey a bit, activate the oils in it, so it's always worth adding a drop. I tend to add a healthy amount. I'm not much for adding an exact few little drops. I just want to see how the whiskey responds to it. If I stutter sometimes a bit, by the way. I am doing this single take. English is not my first language, but I enjoy it more like this. It feels more genuine, and I hope you agree. Let's see. Water has a profound effect on the nose. It makes it a lot more lighter, and I start picking up on some more herbal qualities like eucalyptus, maybe a little bit of aniseed, and the rye comes forth more as well. What I like about the rye is that it reminds me of, well, my grandmother used to make rye bread. One day she got a bread making machine from my mom and my uncle, her children, and she started making bread. But the rye bread was something I loved, because she would put some rye bread with some butter and then thick molasses on top of it, and it's wonderful to find that in my whiskey right now, because I used to love that. That was like lunch dessert. After you had your bread with cheese and ham or whatever, you got a little slice of rye bread with molasses, and yeah, you can find it here, and it's rich, delicious, it's awesome. Let's have a taste with water. Let's see what it did. The first thing I noticed is that somehow the water added some citrus to it. I'm picking up on some lemon. Some lemon custard, in fact, like sweet lemon, and the vanilla is more pronounced as well, and it lost a lot of that dark tannin note. If that's something you love, you're probably better off without water, but if you would like to nudge it a bit more into a sweeter, fruitier side, definitely give a few drops of water a try. It really does transform the dram. For the finish, you don't have to worry too much. It's just as intense as before, but the mint quality is ramped up, and yeah, the eucalyptus as well. I'm finding much more of that, so it does change it a fair bit, and it makes it much more herbal. So personally, I think I prefer the finish without water. I preferred the palate with water, and the nose was 50-50. So I can't give you a clear opinion on whether you should add water or not, but I would definitely give it a try. Either way, I think if you buy yourself this one, you won't be disappointed. And like I said, this is the review for this version, but what you find might be a bit different. Like I said, it will be in the same ballpark, but the nuances are different. You'll find something new to go looking for, and I think that's fun. And what's better than having some fun with whiskey? So I hope you enjoy. I'll say cheers, because it's not a scotch, so I won't say Sláinte Mhath. Cheers, And cheers to bourbon, because they make some amazing stuff. See you again soon.